Man, that light is so bright, my eyes are about to be put out. Good morning, folks. Today, I thought I'd fan the flames and let's talk about HUD again. So, I've got a pretty scathing report, 12 pages, going back to 1981. Now, many of you have commented over the years through our office, section8consulting.com, and told me, hey, there are scams going on in HUD and that. And I get that. People want to place their frustration where they believe it's coming from. Though I believe many of you, your blame and placement of it often is misdirected. It's generally the housing authority locally, not the federal agency. But in a rather eye-opening report and I'm going to credit this to Politico, which is a moderate or in the middle news agency doing most of the footwork here. So I have some joy to report this morning, and scams and hustles. And much to my imagination, it rides along with what American politics really are. If you don't care about who you install in a federal agency, they're going to serve their own agenda. And if allowed, they're going to set up their investments and then suck HUD dry by allocating money and approving shit that nobody would normally ever do. And when an administration or a president doesn't oversee that carefully, man, they've gone wild to the tune of about $65 billion. Now, the most egregious incidents are in the early 80s, starting in 81. Small program, but big cheats, man. Man, they were getting away with some stuff. So I want to talk about that a little bit this morning. So we had Samuel Puris from 1981-89 under the Reagan administration. You remember Ronald Reagan, don't do drugs. What was it? Nancy Reagan. So during that administration, they go on to say that during that allocation of money through that president there, they had a large number of costly subsidy programs, and each involves a tangled web of stakeholders. Many HUD programs divide responsibilities between the federal, state, and local policymakers. And then it goes on to discuss them purchasing a warship. Okay, a warship turned into a museum. Now, I'm not sure how we can purchase a retired warship. Oh, we got a visitor. So I'm going to pull out little mama, the cat. Come here, girl. She decided to come visit today. For those that like my kikis. Oh, she's not having it. But she might hang out a bit, so let her hang out. So they purchased a warship and turned it into a museum for the tune of about $5 billion. Now, I'm wondering how many people that needed housing were living on that warship. Just one extravagant example of that. So I'm going to keep moving on here. If I can get my paperwork from my office manager, little mama, she's right here. And she's making herself known. This is an impromptu and unprofessional video, and I quite enjoy it. So if you don't like it, please exit, unsubscribe, and we'll see you later. All right, so moving on to the Pierce years, I'm going to go ahead and get to the second page here. Like I said, we're a little slow going this morning. The HUD reform was for a priority for the Reagan administration that disregarded it and contributed to major scandals that enveloped the 1980s. The scandal owed a lot to the mismanagement and corruption of Samuel Puris. Now, again, we're not here really to discuss or place agenda and blame for Republicans or Democrats, okay? If Politico and its research decided they're going to target Republicans, that's just what it is, okay? I'm going to report on what I have. Now, of course, fact-checking is always an important thing when you accept news from the news, and that's what you should do, okay? It does, and it also, the views shared here through the research do not express my own, okay? So we don't need any death threats early in the morning. I haven't had my coffee yet. After I've had that, you may level death threats. You can do name calling. We can do all those games. I quite enjoy them. But please do wait till I've had my coffee. So Pierce backed 4.5 million HUD grant to convert an aircraft carrier into a museum. Okay, 4.5 billion. Now imagine how many people we could have housed that year. Goes on there, he overrode recommendations from the department's top civil service to push through the project in Durham, North Carolina. That sounds about right. The South. I'm from Louisiana, so that sounds about right. Normally, when we elect people in the southern states, we elect them to serve our agenda. I'm pretty sure that Ronald Reagan wasn't keenly aware of a lot of things. Okay, so I don't blame it. I don't blame him specifically. He seemed like a good old boy, but yeah, to be honest, installing these people into HUD that are serving their bank accounts is a dangerous thing, especially when you're not monitoring them. And so that's the prime example. It all goes on to say, and this was sought by Charles Markham, the mayor of the city and former law firm associate of Pierce. The deal was also included a $2.3 million grant, $11.8 million in rent subsidies. Now, this is rent subsidies for a aircraft carrier that nobody lived on. It's a museum. It goes on to say that Pierce and his friends, and of course, it mentions the Republican Party support of jazz music. Lionel Hamilton obtained a 20-year, $21 million rent subsidy for housing project in New York, New Jersey. This is just good old-fashioned handshake shit here, okay? And both parties are responsible. Let me tell you something. If you go and you sit in the House, you go and sit in Congress, these people know what each party knows what the other party's doing, okay? So no matter how you level this, both parties are complicit. Okay, I don't care how you want to do this. Each one monitors the other very carefully. For this to only just start coming out in a big way, it tells me they're rather complicit. When money's involved and both parties can get a little bit of extra dojo in their wallet, nobody's really talking. Ain't nobody doing a shakedown then. So this is the shakedown. So we wasted approximately $6 billion in the early 80s on bullshit. And it lined only a handful of people's pockets. These were not vouchers issued, okay? So let's move on from Paris. Well, we got a long hit list here today, and I'm not going to go through all of this, okay? I just want y'all to see. I just want you to see some examples of what happens when politics and when installing people that don't know what the hell they're doing, or they know what they're doing, but they don't know how to run that federal agency. And they use it as a piggy bank. And both sides of the aisle have done this shit, okay? Now, whether they justify it through prayer circles or Christianity or being conservative or being very liberal doesn't matter. It only matters that these funds were misused, okay? So going on from there, however, they went on to say sorts of personal favors were small potatoes compared to the systematic abuses engineered by Pierce and his top associates. And so, closing out that section, I'm going to move on here. Philip Wynn, Assistant Secretary of HUD and co-founder of Wynn Group, which served and secured HUD backing for housing and rehabilitation for Colorado. Wynn Group received $133 million in federal rent subsidies. So I've always told you guys with HUD and even your local PH, your public housing authority, only a small fraction of the money actually that trickles down to a housing authority actually goes into vouchers. So if we take HUD, it's private investors, all the other people involved, they steal most of the pizzas. So the delivery driver gets mugged, right? There's the federal dollars in the pizza box, gets mugged. 3/4 of the pizza is gone before it even gets delivered to the PHA. Now the PHA runs like the mafia in most cases, really structured that way. So once they have their slice, what you guys are getting when you finish a pizza, you ever notice you got a few black olives or pepperonis left? That's what's paying for these vouchers. By the time it gets scammed and ripped off all the way to the bottom. And just to be clear, HUD as a whole agency isn't creating this problem. There are a lot of fine adults that work at HUD and lots of people that supervise and run HUD that do just fine. We're talking about individual actors at the highest level doing this, okay? And so this is not an accusation against HUD as a whole. or even as a federal agency. It's against specific leaders that come in and rob it blind. And it's very comparable to like mob activity. Why would we pay somebody $133 million to consult? Nobody's ever paid my office that kind of money, okay, to consult. And I know more than half these assholes in there. I've been doing it longer than anybody I'm going to even discuss in here. But they get $133 million. I'm lucky if I can shake the change out the couch for what I get paid to consult. And it's interesting because we're installing politicians in everything, including news and media. Yeah, I've been published many times through average to lower publications. But when it comes to the big ones, they don't want people like me on there because, well, it would cause a firestorm. Because I don't talk in pleasantries. It's just truth. And so they don't really want to put me on CNN or Fox News because shit, they would have to cut the video feed and fire everybody in the building by the time I got 10 words out. They rather people that align with the conversation they like, and that means sugarcoating shit. I'm not going to do that. So moving on from there, Lance Wilson, executive assistant to Pierce, involved in 5 projects, stole a total of $92 million in HUD. So $92 million in HUD subsidies. One person. Michael Karim, deputy assistant secretary to HUD, $360,000 to consult. Nothing out of that man's shitty mouth was worth $360,000. We don't even pay presidents to talk at Harvard for that amount, but we're robbing HUD from it. Now, I want you to keep in mind, HUD being a federal agency is the piggy banks are being robbed by individuals. The core is not rotten at HUD. There are many people, they defend many of you guys' asses against those of you who have Section 8. HUD and many of its hardworking employees go out there and defend you guys against bad PHAs and even landlords, and other circumstances. So again, we're just speaking at specific leaders installed, not monitored, and then using it as an investment tool to enrich their ass for the short period of time that administration's in, that is either complicit with it or is not monitoring it and just trusting it. This is the problem we have when we put people in to run and lead HUD. They don't have any fucking idea what it's like to be low income or the challenges faced out there. So let's be honest with ourselves. So we're arguing peanuts about, millions going into homelessness and this and that. Well, the reason we have an argument of how money is spent is because we're not looking at actually where most of the money is really spent. If we did that, then we would need to open a new federal supermax, and we would fill it with politicians, the ones that we install in HUD that steal most of the money before it even gets to the PHA or the Public Housing Authority. So let's go on down this nice, lovely Christmas list. James Watt, Secretary of Interior, ripped off a good $420,000 for helping clients secure subsidies. Now, let me repeat that. James Watt, Secretary of Interior. Now, this man don't even work at HUD. This is good old boys sitting around having a few whiskeys at the 5-star restaurant, cutting a steak, and again, $420,000 for helping clients secure subsidies. That's called a fucking bribe. You gave the man $500,000 to improve the big builders. Say what you mean. Say what you mean. You sit down, you advise for 1 hour, and you don't. Why is a Secretary of Interior involved in anything? This man should be pulled out the coffin or rearrested. So I'm going to go into comments real quick. We're going down Santa's naughty list here today. This is ridiculous. All right, so let me scroll back, see who's talking and who's enjoying it. And King says, peace, 100%. Nad, good morning. Good morning to you. Jethro Tucker, I like that name. If Section 8 is going to go through a future change, and I have one proposal, credit score should be 640 and above, no credit history, 1 year in a program should be reported to the credit bureaus. Well, I think that many concepts can be considered in respect to what you're saying, Jethro, but we also have to understand that people across the nation of the low income, which is roughly a quarter or more of our country, everybody reaches a crisis point where your credit isn't so great, okay? Even ordinary Americans have gone through it. And we're especially seeing it more now than we've ever seen it in this country's history. So we cannot just set a magic number. I think that number needs to be adjusted up or down depending on circumstance. We need to look at personal circumstance. If we were all robots and acted the same, worked the same, and had the same opportunities, it'd be different. But we live in a country and a reality that is not set by a single number. And so I agree to kind of disagree a bit. I think that we should consider many different solutions. And the reason when you set a bar like that, the reason it's good to consider a multitude of solutions is because that's the way you can address a multitude of different people. What you don't catch in program A may catch another gap by doing B, C, and E, that would be a more reasonable way, unless we're the assumption that all babies born would have 180 IQ, all have equal opportunity, all of the same race and color, all have, you see what I'm saying? We're not robots. We're all designed very differently by genetics, and we're also by circumstance. We don't consider the old and may have astronomical healthcare costs and other things. And so their credit could be poor because they had to go in for heart surgery. It cost them $500,000. Okay. So we have to look at all available options there. So I'm probably preaching the choir. Karen knows, good morning. Jay and the cats, and little mama's sleeping on the microphone right now. Well, not quite on it. She's right by here. She likes to keep me company. She's a very good office manager. She mostly naps, but occasionally she'll clock in a bit. All right, Christopher Wells, good morning. Yep, it's good morning. Kitty Pie, good morning. Your comment was retracted. Please don't talking dirty in the channel until we get to at least 11 a.m. Okay, I have a hotline. I charge $5 a minute if you need to talk dirty. Dub Milton, hello, happy Sunday. Well, yep, it is happy. I didn't even realize yesterday was Halloween. So, and I went on Nextdoor, the app this morning, and you had a lot of soccer moms on there complaining about how they stuck out a $45 bucket of candy, and they were complete dismay that a child would take it all. So you like the child to act like an adult, right? And you put $45 in candy in a bowl, and you want the little bastards to not steal it all. Maybe you should check your own way of thinking. Okay, when I was growing up in the 80s, we had Halloween. You didn't put no bowl of candy out like that. I mean, you could if you was in a proper neighborhood where all the children were, properly house trained. But are you kidding? The city of Houston? You're lucky they didn't steal the fucking bowl. Get over yourself. All right. There'll be a few profanities this morning. We'll all have to go back to church and ask for forgiveness. All right. Truth works. Hello. God bless. Yep. You too. Nad, why don't they concentrate on the migrants for now? Well, they've concentrated pretty hard. About 500,000 have taken flights to different destinations. And these weren't vacation spots either, okay? Going on from there, homeless industrial complex. Before we make such stringent comments regarding the homeless, the vast majority, here's the problem with homeless and the debate and discussion revolving around whether people should help or not, or whether even federal dollars should be spent. First of all, the general public, being you, only has a narrow view of what you see under the bridge and a person at the light with a change cup. And that tends to be the whole opinion of what you think you know about homeless. Now, I've been in this industry 26 years, and most people that become homeless, it's a very temporary circumstance. A lot of high class, middle class. Let me tell you something. Through that pandemic, a lot of people thought they were super uppity and lost a whole lot. I had people in their Beamers call my office. They lost everything. And so do we change our focus based on class, money, former status? The reality of it is, the vast majority, maybe 92% of the people out there are hidden homeless. And these are people that reach a crisis point because a forest fire burnt their house down, or a widow's husband died and she was left with not enough to cover things. And so we level very harsh judgment against people and circumstances that you don't even know about. And we place it as a whole, that it's Bob smoking crack and turning tricks under the bridge. That is the whole of this. It's not. So I'm going to warn everybody this morning, you come in here with some smart ass comment about homeless people, make your distinction. If you're going to distinguish and say, hey, I've got something shitty to say, I'm referring directly to under the bridge with the crack pipe turning tricks. Or are you referring to the whole of everybody as a blame? Look, in the end, we're all humans. And none of you would be making these shitty comments if it was your child. Okay? You know how many children are mixed in this solution? Just last year, I had a guy living in a tent with his wife and 12 children. And even with that, people will make bad comments. Well, why are y'all having sex like rabbits in the forest, having 12 children if you can't afford it? Well, they didn't start that way. The house burned down. Okay? We're all just a moment's stroke from that. So before you screw on your judgment wand, I'm telling you, be very careful how you tread. Could be your ass next. So anyways, in reference to all that in that comment that gentleman made, I'm not upset with you, and I'm certainly not trying to, say anything ill will. I'm just suggesting I'm setting a tone for the video so we all have an understanding of what's going to be acceptable in this channel. Now, I can say shitty things all day. That's what I do in this channel. So please don't take my job. All right, we're going to take a little break from the comments, and then we're going to roll on. Let's go on to our nice Santa Claus list. Joseph Strauss, Special Assistant to Pierce, $1.7 million in consulting fees for helping HUD win subsidies. So this guy brokered deals. Not fairly. It means that everybody that wanted the subsidy attempted to get it, but only those that had money, power, and connection got it. And for that reward, to make that phone call was $1.7 million. So I would say, Joe Strauss, you are the highest paid hooker in town. Because what you're doing, it looks a lot like being a hooker. You're being paid to make connections. Okay? If enough money, you can buy this whore. And that's what it is. So, Joseph Strauss, you're just a high paid hooker. That's all you are. And you stole $1.7 million. Nothing about that phone call was worth that kind of money. And the fact that you sit there and did it the way you did, I think we need to go down and ring his doorbell and then give him Section 9, three hots in the cot in a prison, and liquidate assets. Time for the Gucci slippers to hit the Goodwill. You're done, baby. Everybody on this list needs to be indicted, Republican or Democrat. This kind of bullshit here, consulting fees at that rate, nothing out of that man's mouth could have been worth $1.7 million. Nothing any of these people could say could be worth any of the amounts I'm looking at here today. Gerald Kerman, head of the General Service Administration, earned $2.3 million in the sale of tax credits for subsidized projects. Let's talk about what subsidies are. This is all these people ripping off this money. All this is, hey, I've got a job working for the feds. Nobody's watching what I'm doing, so I'm going to take you down for a steak dinner, a good bottle of wine, and for a few $1 million, I'm going to approve your shit back door. I'm going to tell everybody else their projects are screwed. If you ain't got no money for daddy, you don't get nothing. And they cut a check. That was the extent of the consulting. Okay? You see how that works out? These are bribes, people, if you don't get it. This is just fucking bribes. Now, subsidies, or 811-202, this is when a private landlord, again, private investment groups attempt to get subsidies needed approved. And to do that, they become prostitutes. They meet with the devil at HUD that's been given an office somewhere in federal government, and they push this shit through for friends, family, and political constituents. $2.3 million. How many vouchers would that have covered? Let's go on back on our hooker list here. Frederick M. Bush. Oh, shit. Well, I guess I will be talking shit about one Bush today, but I don't know if they're connected. A leading fundraiser in the George H.W. Bush presidential campaign received $600,000 for consulting on a dozen subsidy projects. Well, I don't know that that's that bad. I mean, that's 12 buildings. I mean, that seems like a pretty fair price, to be honest with you. So I don't know if I agree with that one. Edward Brooke, former senator of Massachusetts, received $183,000 for consulting and legal work on 2 housing projects. That's questionable. So now we're getting in nickels and dimes now. So the smaller stuff. So let's move on. We got another lovely page. The Cicero years, 1993 to 1997. In the Clinton administration, the primary mission of HUD was to increase homeownership rates. Remember that? Remember, I've been telling you guys for years that this stuff started a little over 20 years ago for HUD homeownership. Well, here's how we crank out those dollars, right? Starting in 93, 97. That was inception of the program at that time. So Henry Cicero served as Bill Clinton, HUD secretary from 83 to 97. And when he signed a deal, allegations he allowed the FBI about payments he had made to a former. Okay, well, that's just slandering here in this part of the report. So this report does seem to be a bit politically motivated, to be honest with you. So I don't know that I'm going to support discussing that kind of stuff against Bill Clinton, but we know he certainly had some hookers. There was some naughty going on in the White House. All right, let's go back to comments. It's hard reading this stuff sometimes because I feel like part of this report on fraud has a political agenda, and I'm not favorable to that. I'm not going to support a direct attack on either party, just for favorable stuff here. But all right, let's get back down here. Oh, Sheila Marie. These programs were not meant to be a lifestyle for the working age. You know, if I didn't know you, I would think that potentially you're suggesting somehow that we've got a lifestyle issue for the working age. You know, big part of what HUD does is administrate funds. It has nothing to do with lifestyles. And I think the opinions, or your opinions, right, currently, are reminiscent of the picture of what the 1980s were, which would be accurate. It kind of was a lifestyle. It was an inception program in Section 8, Title 24, subsection 8. But I think that's dated. That's a dated way to think. The program's cleaned up as much as it can, though we still have thieves in there, and again, it doesn't have to be specifically at HUD. There are lots of other federal agencies that make phone calls. This is how politics work sometimes when you have elected positions. So I agree to disagree a little bit, okay? Kayla, how awful. All of this is leading to one thing. Well, it's been leading for a long time. It's like a diamond thief breaking into the bank. He's been breaking in for 40 years. At what point do we arrest him? This is nothing. All these reports here are going back nearly 40 years. Look, guys, this is how it operates. It's just a system of theft. We keep putting burglars in to run HUD. And then we turn around and so we elect these, we place these officials in HUD, right? From the Democratic side and the Republican side. And then we don't watch what they do. And they cut all kinds of fantastic deals because most politicians already have money and they usually have a lot of friendships within the real estate market. And whoever's money is the biggest money talks. Bribes, baby. That's what it's all about, bribes. This is what the vast majority of the federal budget's spent. But we spend more time parsing whether or not Sally deserved to have a Section 8 voucher, whether Bob deserves to have a food stamp card, when the reality of it is more money is stolen than ever given. When do we have that conversation? When do we have the conversation about the people that don't have a voucher? Talk about the rich politicians that aren't on food stamps stealing everything. They steal more than any one person ever could have done having a voucher or even a food stamp card. The combination of theft, bribery, and fraud is greater than any pool of people that use the program. But yet the largest portion of the pie and blame on society. Oh, the shitty homeless. Oh, that elderly woman. She should have thought. She should have had a better education. Why does she work at a dollar store? Now she's no longer paying taxes and a complete suck on society. Let's not think about all the people that were installed that were paid millions, tens of millions, to fleece most of the money that don't use Section 8. So ask yourself, who's really responsible here? If we're going to levy some fucking blame on individuals, the homeless, the seniors sucking up, the non-tax-paying seniors sucking up everything, right? That's the jam that's going on. What about the politicians that walked away scot-free? Stole $1/10 trillion over 40 years. 1/10 trillion. The equivalent of almost the entire budgets during certain administrations evaporated because of this. But our sole focus is on, Bob and Sally having a voucher. Oh, those pieces of trash. They won't even work at Popeye's Chicken. We should go ahead and put them in the electric chair. They're just shit, right? But we're not talking about the politicians that did this, that didn't use any of it and robbed. Maybe it's time to start thinking again. If we're gonna sign checks on blame, maybe we ought to take a cold hard look at the people who don't use the voucher. It seems to me they're more dangerous. It seems to me they're the biggest burden. The very people that are supposed to be running this are the thieves. They steal more than anybody pulled together with vouchers and some food stamps. Hey, y'all, every damn one of y'all elected them. So let's move on with the free rides and Christmas list. We're going to move on from Cicero. We already saw how that $6 billion went. Clinton administration. So, boy, let's go on the Como years. I like this one better. 1997 to 2001. Andrew Cuomo joined the Clinton administration assistant secretary. And it goes on. He organized a lavish conference, taxpayers for $235,000. I don't know that's such a big deal, but he spent almost $1 million on travel. So that's $1 million. I think what the Cuomo years spelled out is we cannot use federal offices to run and live a high lifestyle. The reason is because that money is from taxpayers, coming from people that are loggers and farmers, working at Winn-Dixie and Kroger's, working at Popeyes, working to be an electrician, working class people, right? We're spending that money, and these people are spending $1 million on parties. You can, if I ran my company and decided I was going to live as a millionaire off the back of everybody I did work for, well, I would just have to throw my cats out. They'd be a burden too. They suck up too much money. You want to live an extravagant life while serving at the federal level. This is what all this is about. They're using, you go down, you work at Popeye's Chicken, and you make $400 in 1 week. Mr. Cuomo is using that to serve in $300 Baccarat glasses, champagne. And so you see where the problem is. And it's systematic. It's not just him, and it's not just one party. But what is a party is everybody's ability in leadership installed in HUD to live like they're billionaires. It's not even their money. And to service their friends and family and constituents. There's real estate companies, handshake deals, setting up their future, paying for their $1 million mortgages while people languish on the sidewalk with one flip-flop, not even two, a single flip-flop, sitting on the sidewalk. You know how many retired attorneys have called my office because they got old and no longer practice and now are homeless? Engineers, So you wouldn't be running your shitty mouth then if you knew how many people out there that used to be somebody. But it's a stark reminder that someday when you go from somebody to nobody and retire, and you hit a road bump and it takes a big portion of what you got and puts your ass out of the house on the street, the same shitty mouth that you're using right now to hop on this channel, that'll be your ass. So I tell everybody to take care in the way that you treat people, because one day your life's going to come unraveled. I don't know many humans are able to get through in a lifetime without damn near becoming homeless 3 times. And it's especially prevalent in the last 20 years. In the last 10 years, it is hardcore. I'm watching soccer mom go from a Benz to a homeless shelter faster than I've ever seen it. We are haymakers these days when it comes to putting people on the street. And at the same time, we're retracting most of the federal dollars to help these people launch back into society. Nobody's going to want to sit on a Section 8 voucher or continue to go through all the bullshit required with a food stamp card when they advance back in and become stable again, because the requirements to keep it would force you to live almost like trash. That's why the theory of what many comments I see roll through our channel about that is when you have an onlooker that doesn't know what the fuck is going out their mouth. They don't actually know. They're almost as bad as the politicians. They're quick to level judgment, to have their side of the story heard, but they have no information. They don't share anything genuine. It's disingenuous. It's an opinion based on a lack of reality. And so I'll shake people's asses down, but out of here. All right, so going on from the combo years, most of it's small change, but I want to say this: 170 million in HUD money for economic development along the Erie Canal. $170 million to build a levee. Now, let me ask you a question here, guys. Do you think that levee was protecting a Section 8 project? No. It had nothing to do with anything. So during the Como administration, we burned $170 million. That's more than all the vouchers were ever issued. A single actor did it. Boy, it seems today we're actually learning that the biggest problem aren't the people we serve and help with this stuff. It's the people that are in charge of the piggy bank. They're the biggest thief. That's what this report says. And it shows decade after decade of just cutting blank checks, and there's nobody. Once you install these people, there's little oversight. By the time they've stolen all, they can buy their way back out politically. None of these men on this list are in prison. They're enjoying the fruits of their robbery. And got paid to do it, got paid to be a thief. Kickbacks, lies, and trash. So next time we want to levy a comment about the piece of trash under the bridge smoking a crack pipe, I can think of people that are worse than that don't have a crack pipe. At least the person with the crack pipe and the person that's turning tricks on First Street, at least they have a fucking reason. And they're not even a burden on society. This is a burden on society when we're stealing tens of hundreds of millions of dollars from a federal agency and doing more damage through one or a handful of people put in these offices than any crack smoker could ever be to any part of society. So we got it all wrong, don't we, today? We got it all twisted up, don't we? And it's just one administration after another. The Como administration. Look, this list is incredible. I was looking on the first page. There's so many of them that I'm going to need a filing cabinet, right? Oh, let's talk about the Fannie Mae, Fannie Mac. Remember 2007, the housing crisis? Would you believe that federal dollars aimed at HUD was an underlying cause of a massive scandal with that? So the housing scandal y'all fought back in those days, back in the early 2000s, when all that shit happened and the stock market damn near crashed, that was Fannie Mae, Fannie Mac, and a lot of underhand deals. And a lot of it had to do with HUD. Not HUD itself, but select installed people that robbed it blind, made deals with investment groups and banks, handshakes and steak dinners for $1 million consults that really didn't even happen. What kind of conversation could you have at brunch, okay, with a $200 steak, a $600 bottle of wine? What the fuck could come out your mouth worth $1 million? There's only one kind of conversation that happens that way. That's where, hey, you give me enough money, I'll approve anything. If you don't have enough money, then your subsidy's been denied. You come see Daddy at a big smokehouse down here at the Big Steaks Capitol Grill. You come see me down here, have that checkbook ready. You don't got money, I don't prove shit. So we're complicit. All right, let's move back to comments. By the way, all this can be verified, and everything I'm discussing actually happened. So, I digress. We can go right back to talking about Nancy and Bob being on the voucher and being lazy bastards, sucking up food stamps. That costs us money. Why am I working to keep that person with a voucher? Or we can talk about the people that stole all the money. Hundreds of millions that weren't even on the voucher. Non-voucher. We'll call it not Section 8, we'll call it Section 7. That's when we just rob everything, but we don't actually receive a voucher. We don't actually receive a food stamp card. When you're making $1 million at lunch for blowing hot air and accepting bribes, then you're receiving Section 7. It's a scam. A scam worth billions. 1/10 of $1 trillion billion scammed by your installed employees in leadership in HUD that couldn't tell you how to operate a coffee machine, but was running the fucking building. And boy, were they running it. They were proving checks at lunch all day long. Any real estate agent, any broker, any investment group that had enough money could literally say their little subsidy was worth this, and they would write it for more. They even got themselves tangled up in Fannie Mae and Fannie Mac, selling subprime mortgages to minorities, Hispanic, African American, and every other race out there, including white folks. And the ending result was subprime. They knew these fucking people couldn't pay. And there's lots of Hispanic, black, and white people that could pay. But that wasn't what they were worried about. What they were worried about is selling subprime, because that meant more fees. Okay? It's just like a legal way of bribery and fraud. So they could ride under the bridge, get Nancy and Bob, pop them in the car. Let's go get a mortgage, as long as I get my fee. So that's your American capitalism. If you can't get it honestly, just steal it. Fuck it. Let's blame the homeless, when in fact the homeless ain't the problem, is it? It's the fucking politicians and the people that we install in the HUD that rob it blind. $1/10 of $1 trillion. If I lined up every person that ever sucked on a food stamp or used a coupon, Section 8, to get a house, they wouldn't even come close to the amount stolen by our installed people. They stole extravagant amounts. They used your tax dollars for that steak dinner, $600 bottle of wine, and on top of that, they got paid to be a fucking thief. And a lot of the thievery still goes on today, kickbacks and games. Or let's make the distinction between organized crime, the mafia, and politics. How is it different? It only serves those in charge. Meanwhile, when you clocked out for being a nurse, you gave 10% to the Church of Crookery, didn't you? See, we've all been doing that. We get home, we clock out of our jobs, and we make a donation to Our Lady of Theft. Or, that's really what it is. They're passing around the donation plate to Our Lady of Theft. You guys have been attending the Church of Cookery for so long that you're spending 10% of your check on it. And was anybody here invited to the steak dinner? No. We can't afford to ride around in planes we don't actually own, using $50,000 in fuel, extravagant golf course, and all this other shit going on, right? I'm not talking about Trump and the golf course. So don't make that connection this morning. What I'm talking about is people wannabes that are have a little bit of money. You know what I'm saying? About $1 million, and then they all get put into office, and they use that as a catalyst to really get rich. And the whole time they got that job, they don't know shit about, can't even plug in the coffee maker. They are fleecing the shit out of it. See, I'm lying to you. So while we spend our time in a government shutdown to discuss why it's not worth for any human to receive a voucher or food stamp at this point, must we ask ourselves where most of that money was really spent by the very people that don't want to approve it? I don't mean currently. I just means that this has been a good old boys club for a long time. And so every time you clock out your job, please do make sure you go brush daddy's hair at the steak dinner, because he's using your money from your check, and you bought his underwear, his plain rod, his steak dinner, his golden spoon. You helped all the children get into Ivy League school while your ass was working at Papa's. He needs the best everywhere. He goes to Paris, stays at a 9-star hotel. Fuck it. He's gonna live like a billionaire. But we're all worried about Sally and Bob and their little voucher and their $180 in food stamps. Oh, look at that trash burning up all my money. No. Those are 1%ers. Okay, that's just to help. That's just to help at the politician's house. That's just the toilet cleaner there taking money. The real thief owns the house. You see my point? Moving on up. Kitty Pine, Retracted, Dub Milton. Hello, good morning. Happy Sunday. Dad. Already did that. Truth Works. Certain states. Wow, evil. Oh, of course. Homeless industrial complex. Yep. Samantha Bakes defending their jobs too. Hey, look, if you pay me $1 million, there's a whole lot of horrible shit I'd do at lunch dinner. I'd probably do it for less. I'm probably too old to be a prostitute, but for that kind of money, look, where's the application? Because look, me and my cats can live a happy life. I don't care. You know, I have to do some awful shit, I guess, as long as I'm not killing somebody. Sheila, the programs were not meant to be a lifestyle. True. How awful all this is leading to one thing. We, the people. Most of us won't live to see it, but eventually America will burn down, because if we continue to put all the power and money into a few hands and the rest of us pay for it, it's only a matter of time before this country goes up in flames. Okay. I don't think there's an end, but I mean, it's getting bad, you know. Let me tell you a short story, guys. This is personally, and I don't get affected emotionally too much by everyday life, but I took a trip yesterday in town, and I went into a parking lot where there was, you know, we no longer really even have malls anymore. And I'm watching the few remaining big stores left. And I became instantly sad, because so many of my memories are tied to the stores that growing up we saw. Much of that's gone. Only a handful left. It'll be soon before there's nothing left except coffee shops, you know. And so while Amazon sucks it all dry, destroys every little business. And so, you know, it made me really sad looking at that and just thinking about that. So much of what many of us that are older connect in our reality and our memories of hanging out at malls or even stores, soon that will all be whitewashed with empty roads and gas stations. Nothing, nowhere to go. And so just the thought of that And a whole lot of this has to do with a handful of people having all of it, owning it all, owning all the profit, and not even a small business can survive anymore. And so it's not just about politics, it's about the wealthy becoming extremely wealthy and reaching a time and age when a single company will have more money than the gross domestic demand of a country like the US. It means that a corporation would have more money and lawyers than even the US government can pony up. And then America's for sale. A corporation would have so much money it could generate its own military and just take over the country. We're going to reach that point if we continue to let a handful of people and we continue to rob the working class. People are going to want to pay into something when thieves are in control of it. We do such a big job everywhere checking felonies, but we never check our politicians, do we? Oh, well, he committed a crime. He's got a felony. He can't work at JCPenney's. Can't work anywhere. He's got to go out and mow lawns for the rest of his life because he's got a felony. But the real felonies are the people we let run most of the shit. But nobody's checking them. There's no limit on that. You know, a lot of these felons out here that can use jobs, discriminate against heavily. But the real thieves, not them. Yep, they've done crimes. But in the end, the real thieves, liars, and cheats are the people that we let run this shit. And nobody's checking their record. In fact, they get paid more. They're worth more as a hustler in politics and organized crime. Because when you take politics and you let people steal money, then it just becomes organized crime. It's no longer politics. And this is organized. Being complicit in letting big companies steal from the American people. All right, Truth Works. We are in a depression where the job incentives in these programs, even jobs, have some self-worth, could change personal lives. It could. I would rather spend money on the homeless and people that have very little income to see if there's a chance we can get them back out there working and moving on in life, because nobody really wants to sit on the Section 8 voucher and food stamps, okay? That means you're just going to be surviving the rest of your life, and most people can't handle that. Then to watch our politicians burn billions in a single swoop, serving only themselves and their constituents. So this is not about politics so much anymore, is it? Because when we put these people in, it means they were felon to start with. They're bad fucking people. They have no moral center, no ethical center, no care for anybody. And they fleece millions and billions. Single persons. And they're in charge of it all. And nobody's doing jack shit. The FBI should be knocking down the door of every one of these guys right now. I would put handcuffs around their fucking throat and tell them, you better be able to hold your breath till we get to the jail. Okay? That's the real crime here. So before we run off and open our big mouth about homeless and how they're such a burden, let's talk about the people we install in these federal agencies that steal everything. How they say it on the street, get your shit straight. Chris Roles, it's hard to get out of the homeless. It is. As a reminder, guys, watching 26 years dealing with homeless through our office, it only takes a single day in a sheriff's office to put somebody, a soccer mom and dad, middle class, out their home because of any number of things that could have gone wrong, forest fire, hurricane, or just bad money management. It could take people, even with my office's help, to drag people out of homelessness. So one day to go to homeless, almost a year for me to drag your ass out of it. Because once you lose all the things that you need in order to operate in our community and in life and reality, without cars and a hot shower and clothes and a way to do laundry, it's exceptionally hard to unwind what it's going to take to get you back into society again. So yeah, it takes only a day to put your ass on the sidewalk and all your shit And it can take a year, sometimes even longer, to get you back what you left in that one day. Now you're starting to see the mountain that most people have to climb. Just ordinary people. I'm going to have a swig of my Great Value Walmart water. That's all right. I don't mind being low class. I can drink that discount water. You know, just cut my hand in the toilet, get some water. All right, kingdoms and moments. Speak the truth. Thank you. Boy, y'all been going on today. Good. Just works. Section 9, Section 8, Section... Yep, I've been coining a lot of phrases behind sections. I decided to rewrite federal law while I make videos. So just so you guys know, the newest edition was Section 7. So Section 7 means you're a politician and a thief and you're stealing all the funds from HUD. Section 8, we all know what that is. Section 9, street hots in a cot. When Section 7 gets caught, he gets promoted to Section 9. Now, the real subsections for those, Section 8 and Section 9, actually Section 9 is technically subsidies. But that's all right. I'm rewriting the rules here. And you guys seem to enjoy it when I do that. Maybe next we'll talk about Section 10. Now, if you thought that 3 hots in a cot in a federal prison was evil, wait till you find out what I'm going to do with Section 10. All right, Sheila. It's time out for complacency. I know we're asleep, aren't we? As a country sometimes. Truth works. All right. So Naz, yep, take away from the middle class and the poor and give to the rich. We've been doing that all along. You know, we've been doing that all along. Look, it won't be soon before the rich are going to rent us our coffins. And that'll be a note. You'll be dead, but it'll keep sucking on your bank account. It's called Rent a Coffin. I'm waiting for an app. Anybody seen the rent a coffin app yet? It's coming. And if you got enough money, then they can do the same for your pets. You can rent your coffin. All right, moving on. Employees of the people. Yep. Illegals don't get EBT directly. Well, I appreciate you dropping that little song and dance for us about EBT and illegals. Let me tell you something. Had you, before you made that comment, had you actually been out there, had a cold beer on the sidewalk, some of these homeless people and immigrants that have these food stamp cards, you'd realize very quickly all kinds of shit goes on. But you're taking it from a perspective, a limited perspective of what you read in the news. Be careful where you dance, okay? Let me tell you something, guys. A lot of you don't realize this, but part of the reason why I can go very quickly from professional to completely unprofessional in this video, I spent 10 years on the street. I was around people that smoked crack within a foot of me. They drank, shot heroin, all kinds of shit, okay? I know exactly what's going on in the streets, okay? Even though it's been 30 years, I know exactly what's going on. Also know street talk. I know lots about prostitutes and tricks and all that. All those things I was exposed to throughout the country as I traveled from 16 to about 24. So don't come in the channel and think you know something, because you don't. You don't know shit. Okay? I saw it firsthand. I could have participated in it too. I could have sat there and sucked on a meth pipe and just washed all my worries away. But I decided I was going to grow up and be really fat, have a bunch of cats, and then talk a little smack about HUD. And probably become one of the most well-known Section 8 consultants in the country. And surviving them all, 26 years. My interpretation of both federal law, policy, and procedure exceeds even that of elected officials and most PHA employees all the way up to the director's level. That's how much I know. We could go through telephone books, hundreds of them, many of which I can verbatim. And no, I don't have 180 IQ. It's probably about 128. And then you see all my dollar store discounts behind me, because money is not a big priority to me. My life isn't sucked up and centered around all the shit I can buy, though I do have a lot of knick-knack shit. So if we're going to call bullshit, let's do it. I put myself out there. I've got nothing to hide. Can you say the same for yourself? All right, moving on from there. Interloop. Here we go with the old myths about food stamps and EBT. You know, I do kind of understand a lot of conversations gearing towards Section 8 and food stamps because many of us grew up there in the 80s and saw it at its worst point when and so I think that a lot of that knowledge and the news is what pumped it out, right? So we gobbled all that up. And that's been our opinion for 50 years. Thing is, guys, when we go through a generation, so you're an older individual and you experienced and saw all the shit that went on with Section 8 in the 80s, look, it's not the 80s anymore. Okay. So we need to refresh our opinions and get our perspective again. Okay. Section 8 and food stamps, none of that stuff works like the way it did. It's been at least 16 transitions. Yeah, money still gets stolen. There's still bad actors, but it's nothing like the 80s. So I think that we need to step back, reevaluate what we learned as a young adult about the 80s in Section 8, and we need to revisit that, okay, on the current principles that are here and the way the system works. Section 8 is nothing about Section 8 in 1981 is even left of what's today. It's not even the same system anymore. I don't think there's anything left except for federal codes that are the same, okay? So I will ask those that have such a harsh opinion to reevaluate what's current and to not use Eyewitness News, CNN, Fox News, and every other news agency as the sole stream of information you get. News agencies have a vested interest, okay, in talking about hot shit because that's how they make money. Don't be a turkey and gobble, gobble, gobble that shit, okay? If they're talking about science, great. I believe them most of the time. But politics and all the other things they talk about, look, there's a vested interest to push their agenda and their view. You guys are being turkeys. You're gobble, gobble. Please stop gobble, gobble. You can learn a lot just by doing your own research, okay? Where the only perspective is the truth. It doesn't need to be politically motivated. And so having your whole stream of information and ideals based on the 80s and 80s news or even the news currently is a bad way of doing business. You're in a closed loop of ignorance. Nothing's perfect, but lots have changed. The only difference between 1981 and today is back then, nobody cared how much money they stole. Now they blame the people that used the program as being the thieves, when the reality is quite stark. They're not the biggest thieves. They're petty thieves compared to the people that run these programs. That's the reality you should take home today. You can fact check that. I'll stake my career on it. All right, moving on. TrustWorks, NGOs, never check. Due diligence, yes. Okay, better say it. Chris, get them. They use different names like they do in Alameda County, of course. Chris, Lebanon, thanks for the laugh. Has Section 8 been changed with the big, beautiful bill? I don't know. I don't worry myself with big, beautiful bills. You think that big, beautiful bill, you think there's anything in there to pay my light bill? Shit, no. I ain't worried about it. You're talking about entirely different things. Congratulations, you woke up, didn't you? Truth works. Hit the button. Sheila. And another reason I'm talking about entirely different things is because you just joined. You joined an hour later. I would advise not rolling off the mattress at noon and showing up like the rest of the party. Do you normally show up an hour late when during a wedding? Then you don't get to see people get married. So I could be a smart ass too. All right, moving on. Daniel Alvarez, very smart, my friend. Thank you. Interlog. I don't know anyone on assistance other than a disabled, elderly, and homeless. I live in the Bay Area. I lived in the Bay Area once too, and I enjoyed the trolleys a lot. I got to say, San Francisco had a lot of surprises for me. Silver Fox, I like you guys need to vote those people out. They weren't voted out in to start with. A lot of the people that are in these offices that stole this money were installed. And a lot of the presidents that installed these people trusted them, and they screwed even the president that put them in there. Kidney candy shop, right? All right, Sheila, some farmers are are paid not to grow crops. Of course, I've seen that. I've seen a few examples of that out here where I live. Also, another thing about the economy has all collapsed. Well, we're in tough times. We're learning to live differently as Americans these days. Nothing's normal anymore. Nothing's average. Every day is a new thing, right? Chris Willis, you the man? I don't know. We'll see. Sheila, remember CDL semi-crash. Well, guys, I really enjoyed talking with you guys today, sharing many different concepts. And we branched off today. We talked about a wide range of topics connected to billions being stole over a 40-year period from HUD from people that were installed by presidents that may have been aware or may have been complicit. I doubt they're going to be complicit. Most presidents don't want to be caught up in these kind of problems. So people get installed, papers get cut, we get into bribery and organized crime. In the end, the reality of it is HUD and its hardworking employees are not responsible for a lot of what happened. It is the people that were installed to run HUD. A handful of people decided to act like the mafia. And they were quite successful because none of them are sitting in prison. And they are the biggest cake taker of all. The second biggest cake taker is when that money leaves HUD. By the time they shook all the hundreds and fifties out of the bag, they send the dollars, fives and tens and 20s down to PHA. Now the PHA has a vested interest in making money. So they pull the 20s, the 10s, and then they leave you guys that need Section 8 housing or food stamps, stuff like that. They just leave them nice, dirty $1 bills. Now, in the end, when blame needs to be assigned through news and politics, it's going to be you using the voucher and accepting Section 8 and accepting food stamps that will take 100% of the blame, while we never throw a single person on this list that stole $0.1 trillion over 40 years. All these people installed in HUD stole this money. They will receive only 1% of the blame and walk scot-free. They'll retire in $5 and $10 million mansions. They'll continue to receive kickbacks from crooked real estate deals and other things, and they'll never see one congressional hearing, and they'll be responsible for roughly half. Them, and your local PHA, the ones that run badly, are responsible for stealing over half of all federal dollars before it ever reaches anybody that needs it. So today is not the question of whether or not that lazy bitch needs a Section 8 voucher or why the drug addict's using a SNAP food stamp card at all. And that's only the worst examples, because most people that are utilizing Section 8 programs or food stamps only do so temporarily. Okay? And they're not drug addicts and all those other things. But if we're going to assign blame, we've got it completely backwards. There needs to be culpability. And the people here, we need to have a witch hunt for these people that stole that money. The feds need to go, don't even knock on a door. I prefer explosive to blow the fucking door off the hinge. So people are mortally injured in these politicians' houses that took those offices and stole tens of millions. We'll start with not even that flashbang, okay? Seizure of all property, seizure of all bank accounts, and also the companies that were complicit in getting these subsidies approved, that whole thing should be seized. They've been given an introductory complimentary pair of 2 federal flip-flops, 1 towel, no toothbrush, and have their ass hauled off for a 30-year stretch. And that 80% of all future earnings after they're 99 and get out be extracted, and then they spend the rest of their days under the bridge. Not to mention 1 million hours of community service, specifically doing foot cleanings for the homeless. That, to me, would be the repayment of the debt of what they stole. And we also rent them a coffin. I'm sure many of y'all can think of evil punishments for these people, but unfortunately, they're sitting comfortable with their 95-foot Christmas tree in their house, still sucking on the dollars they stole, while most of the people that needed the Section 8 or food stamps couldn't even get the shit. And then we roll back here to government shutdowns. 1 in 10 of those people in there are going to steal from us. So when you end your day as an electrician, a nurse, a doctor, you're donating 10% to Our Lady of Robbery. And 1 in 10 of those people sitting in the House or Congress, if installed in HUD or another federal agency, have a high potential to fleece us, rob us blind. With little oversight, a free pass, and then we'll turn around and watch the American news blame a homeless person that barely got $200 for a voucher. We have our concepts and ideals completely fucked up in this country. We've got it all wrong and all backwards. I believe that these systems could be used properly if we just ended HUD the way it is, got a new agency, and did not allow people and politicians and people be installed in that stuff. That'd be number one. And modernizing with AI, cut all the stealing out. Getting rid of all the PHAs and have that run completely by federal agencies with an office in each city. The reason all this happens is because we haven't modernized. It's too good. The gravy train's too good for those that work there that have control of the checkbook. So I honor those HUD employees that have worked but did not know that your leaders were complete thieves and con artists. Because many people at HUD have worked so hard, including illegal, to defend the interest of many people, not just people on vouchers. But they unfortunately have somebody installed in there that completely stole everything. And this has been going on 40 years. And so that's my problem today. If we're going to talk about assigning blame, let's talk about the whole party, not just the homeless man or the 80-year-old senior that needs food stamps or Section 8 voucher. Let's talk about the millionaires we installed in there that operated like the mafia. And they didn't even do a very good job. The mafia could have done a better job of stealing. To be honest, I mean, shit, if you're going to take that much, why not take more? I mean, why are we even playing around? Just straight go and get a HUD credit card and just, that's what they do at PHAs when they go on the dark side. We've had about 100 or more housing authorities being indicted because somebody in leadership took the credit card, took the bank card connected to the account and decided, fuck it, I'm just going to buy whatever I want. And then when the party's over, because HUD runs so inefficiently because of their upper level leaders that they don't even catch the scam till it's penniless. In other words, housing authorities don't even get indicted till years after. It's like they didn't even realize what was happening because they have enough people. I'm going to ask a few comments and we're going to close this up. I've enjoyed talking with you today, all of you, and I hope you consider it. This is a dialogue to keep your mind open to all considerations. It's not about assigning Democratic or Republican or any other division of politics blame. It's about considering all things as a whole. But, if you have a loose screw and you need to vent your frustration on having that loose screw, you could blame me. We welcome death threats after the coffee hour of 11. All other things, I'm okay with that. So, Fox, good morning. Sheila Marie, Jay, or homeless are putting up in hotels. Sheila Griffin, and filled their private prisons, of course. You don't see none of these politicians buying private prisons. They're too worried they'd be put in there, or they worried they'd go and inspect the cell and they get locked in there. Chuck Sumner is the reason for the shutdown. Well, We're not discussing old Chucky boy, but you have your opinion. You've shared it. I'm glad you did. Sheila Griffin, $197 a big sack in our neck of the woods. Gotcha. Washington sounds dangerous. Well, you haven't been there. It's like going down to the local snake pit. If you go to the snake pit and you hop in, but you think you're going to get bit, look, none of us would have anything in common with these politicians because ain't none of us got their kind of money. We certainly don't have their kind of power. And most of us are not smart enough to steal as much as they do. I'm not suggesting all of them like that, but I mean, again, there's always the bad ones, and the bad ones steal a whole lot, man. You thought the stock market and his thieves were bad. We got the same problem with politicians. You know, you look around a room with 300 politicians sitting in there, you're guaranteed at least 5 or 10 of them are going to do some shit that ain't right. Remember, they just get elected in. They're nobody, then they become somebody, and now they're a politician. And either they're going to do things right or they're going to steal, you know, and that's how it goes. And if they get installed in federal agencies like HUD, then they go and steal tens of millions. I'm sure that this will get even bigger over time. They'll get more brazen and steal over 100 million if they can. They'll handshake and accept bribes from every builder in town, especially when there's virtually no oversight of this. And so we wonder why we have no budget for housing and food stamps. Well, shit, we don't have it because we stole it all. Not because people spend it on food stamps. So, guys, I've enjoyed it, and we'll see you again in probably 48 hours. Actually, no, we're going to have another video tomorrow, Sunday. We'll keep it light-toed. Reduction of profanities, reduction of negative. And by the way, today, marking November 1st, I believe that is the end of food stamps for now. So there are lots of judges around America trying to figure that out. We'll see whether or not they dip in that emergency fund. If not, I want to warn a bunch of people, do not attempt to rush stores and steal, okay? There's some shit going around on TikTok about, oh, we're going to run in the store and steal a bunch of shit because the food stamp cards don't work. Let me give you an advice as a 26-year veteran and Section 8 consultant at the federal level. You go steal some stuff out that store and get yourself a record, you'll be banned from everything, okay? You'll lose your housing, everything. So don't go do some childish shit like that. If you're teaching yourself through TikTok, then you're an idiot, okay? My old folks know what I'm talking about. Sit down and read a book, man. TikTok ain't going to teach you shit. That's free entertainment for clowns. All right, got to go, guys. See you later.